It's a lot earlier there than it is here. So
I
She
love
got
my
up.
background.
She got up early this morning.
It's one of the photos that I took myself, I must say.
it's beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank
All right.
you.
Laura. Okay. All right. Yeah, I had
All right,
forgotten to hit
are
record.
we on the record yet?
No, go ahead and get us started, Mr. Kreitz. We are recording now.
Okay, that's all right. I'd like to go ahead and call the May 20th, 2021 meeting of the Ohio Elections Commission to order. Mr. Richter, if you'd be so kind as to call the roll.
Ms. Tavares? Ms.
Present.
Coughlin?
Here.
Ms. Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Bromer?
Here.
Mr. Norman?
I am here.
Kreitz?
I'm here.
Present with the exception of Mr. Beatty.
All right. Do we have a motion to excuse Vice Chair Beatty, please?
So
So
moved.
moved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Cunningham.
All right. Any further discussion on that motion? If not, all signify by saying aye, raising your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And just as an aside, I think all of us know that Commissioner Beatty's father passed away earlier this week. And, you know, I'd ask that we all keep Otto and his family in our thoughts. These got to be very difficult times for he and the family. So,
Yeah, and just I'll interject there just to say you and I got an email from him late last night indicating that he's got a lot going on and he didn't think he'd be able to make the meeting, to which both Mike and I said, of course, that's
sure, need to be with the family.
understandable, no problem.
Okay, the first item on the agenda then this morning, Mr. Richter, is case 2021R-021 Tamala Lee et al.
Oh, I'm going to interject there. Just say, let's go back to the minutes first.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Everyone should have received a copy, or hopefully received a copy of the May 6th, 2021 minutes.
And I got comments back from Mr. Norman, Ms. Tavares in the intervening period, and I made the corrections that were both highlighted there. So what I now have, I can't remember whether I recirculated them to you or not, but all the minutes are updated based on everybody's previous comments.
Move to admit, Norman.
All right. Do we have a second to Mr. Norman's motion?
Second.
All right. Second by Mr. Bromer. So we have a motion that's been duly seconded to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 6, 2021. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion
Thank you very much.
carries. All right, now we can move to the preliminary review in case 2021R-021 Tamala Lee et al. Mr. Richter?
Yeah, well, this one came up before at the last meeting. I recommended that the matter, I was recommending that the matter be dismissed. Excuse me, we had a lengthy discussion. We decided to bring it back on this meeting because there were concerns about what the nature of that would be. I said I'd get more information from the Board of Elections and we'd see where that goes. So I circulated to everybody what I got from the board. I talked about it with the person at the Summit County Board who we deal with. Cirillo, I think it is. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on his last name. Cirillo. But I talked with Vince about it, and and then also Mr. Bromer sent along to me. I sent that along to everybody. If I meant to, but I may not have, an article that he saw in the paper wherein the Ms. Lee was found in violation of 6 or 7 penalty counts and sentenced to 10 years in prison starting in 2017. But anyway, the last 2 reports they had were a 15 annual or 14 annual, and then a 15 semi-annual. And the 15 semi only reflected $6 in the account. But it reflected an outstanding loan amount. I wasn't able to get any more information on the outstanding amount for that matter. In addition, there was an outstanding addendum request that they had that questioned that questioned where she had a boatload of her own reimbursements totaling a little more than $2,500. Like I said, not anywhere near what Mr. Elkins did, but certainly not good, that they had never gotten a response to. And so we obviously decided to bring it back. As I laid out in the explanation, I can see, a basis for potentially declaring it terminated, but with an outstanding loan and the outstanding issues as it relates to what her usage was. And I discussed it briefly yesterday with Mr. Kreitz, in terms of, even when she gets out, the likelihood that anything will really happen with it is probably pretty slim in the grand scheme of things. But I guess I'm leaning more toward, let's just go ahead and dismiss it at this point. Summit will bring it back to us again in the future. That's where I'm leading, but we're here to have conversation about where it goes from here. And so I'll turn it back over to everybody else now for comment.
Well, if she's been incarcerated for 10 years, is this thing going to keep pulling back before the commission over the next 10 years?
I guess until she gets out and presumably does anything do with it. Oh, man, I can't talk. Or until potentially, I guess 2027, because that's when her 10-year term began, was in 2017. So that's certainly a realistic possibility. Yeah.
It seems to me like that's a lesson in futility. You've got somebody who's already a convicted felon. If we proceed and we want to set this for a hearing and do all that because of what she's done, it just seems to me like we're wasting the commission's time and efforts. It seems to me the best course would be either dismiss or declare it terminated, and then it doesn't keep popping back before us.
And I'm not going to argue with that approach. Like I said, because there can't be any money in the fund, because it was, like I said, a 15 semi with $6 reflected. And so, that, knowing how banks tend to operate, if there was an account that actually had that little bit of money in there, that was gone before the semi was filed, more than likely. Banks are very good at making sure they get their monthly fees out of an account if it's there. So I'm sure there's no money in the account. I apologize for not getting more information on who the loan is to, or if there was a relationship there. Vince didn't get back to me. I had requested more information, but I didn't follow up sufficiently, obviously. But I don't know who that is, or whether there's a real possibility that anything come of that aside from them forgiving it, more than likely. So I'm not going to disagree. I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Last filing was 6 years ago.
You broke up, so I didn't hear.
You broke up, Mr. Norman.
I think the last filing, did you say it was 2015? So 6 years ago?
Yes, 15 annual or 15 semi-annual. Yes.
Phil, have you had any communications at all with the Summit County Board of Elections other than getting the referrals about this?
Yeah, that's how I got the materials. Was Vince sent it to me. Oh, I misspoke. Not 15 semi, a 16 semi-annual. I apologize. So it's only 5 years, not 6.
Okay.
But yeah, Vince sent me the stuff, and I had a brief conversation with him about it. And if I head to it, I will interpret his comments back to me as I kind of heard them. I'm not going to say that Vince actually said this, but I think if we were to have declared this terminated, he wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Because in our brief conversation about it and her and what she's currently facing, I think they look at it as a long-term proposition where no filings are going to be made.
I think that's pretty likely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if the better course is to find a violation and declare it terminated. I mean, I don't know that dismissals, I don't know. I just throw that out there. I don't know that dismissal is the right thing to do, but I don't know that hanging on is the right thing to do either.
Yeah, there is a logic to that as well. I mean, obviously, that's not where my recommendation is, but
Right.
I like the conversation. I kind of like where personally, I kind of like where you guys are headed on this. And
I don't know.
you know,
Well, I guess if we have a finding of a violation, then we need to impose a penalty, and I'm not sure we can say it's good cause. And then what we're doing is we're sending it to the AGs for collection, which is going to create from my perspective, needless work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And she's
I
probably
would agree with
uncollectible.
that.
Yeah.
She's
I
been
agree.
incarcerated for years.
Yeah. I agree. I don't disagree with any of that. I don't like the precedent of because somebody's incarcerated, even if they have a violation and we have a recommendation of a request for additional information of $2,600 and there may have been taking from the campaign account that you just dismiss it for futility. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, well, and I will inject there. We did have, don't ask me to cite the name of the case or the name of the candidate. We have had at one particular circumstance that I can recall where Geauga or Portage County referred a guy a few different times after he had been incarcerated. Then they referred him again after he got out. And he eventually terminated his committee, dealt with his issues before us and got himself, out from under it. That's one time, in all the years that we've been doing this. Now I can only think of about 2 or 3 times when we've had this kind of circumstance where someone, aside from this case and the other one, it's certainly something that hasn't happened very often. But we have had one case where a gentleman, when he got out, got in touch with us, eventually, requested that his cases be reconsidered because he had terminated his committee and filed and got everything filed. Well, actually, I don't know that he got everything filed because I don't know that he had any more information. I think we eventually declared his committee terminated, is my recollection of that particular matter. And he was not incarcerated as long as Ms. Lee is.
I'm going to ask for procedural. Let's assume we were, as a commission, find a violation, we impose a monetary penalty, and it gets referred to the Secretary of State. Does this actually get served to this individual in prison?
First off, you mean the Attorney General, and I think the attorneys unless we were to impose a substantial amount, which I'm not encouraging, I think essentially what the Attorney General does is after they get that from us, they'll send out more or less a ding letter saying, hey, you've been referred to the Attorney General because you had this outstanding item with the Ohio Elections Commission, pay up. And they'll do that. They may do that on multiple occasions, but that is certainly not something they're going to send out to special counsel. And what else they would do, I don't know the answer to that.
Phil, in your discussions with the Summit County Board of Elections, what is it they want done with this case?
Well, maybe, they have that outstanding addendum request where they wanted her to explain the various reimbursements that she took from her campaign committee. And I think, they would like to see a response to that. But beyond that, aside from getting, let's say, a termination report, I think that's about all they really want is a response to that and see her close out her campaign committee so they don't have to deal with it anymore.
As it relates to Ms. Lee, they have good service? We do?
We did not, honestly, we did not send this out because I'm not sure where she is incarcerated. So, I didn't send out notice.
So if we're taking action, don't we have to have due process and service upon this particular person?
I think so.
Sure
I
we
would say yes. If we're taking action against her. That's why, my initial recommendation to dismiss isn't really taking action against her.
Well, it
you know,
is.
so-
It is. No matter what you do, if you do anything, you're taking action against her.
Dismissing would not be prejudicial to her, but I have the same concerns Catherine addressed, which is what are we doing as far as setting precedent? So I think my recommendation is I think we should probably try to get service so that at least if we're going to take action, we follow the procedural requirements.
Right.
I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Hey, Phil, I've got a question. For what
Sure.
offenses is she been found guilty and committed? And is it in any way connected to the complaint that's been filed by Summit County?
Federal-
I'm trying to open that article that Dennis sent.
Here, I have it up.
Yeah,
She
and
was, she was found guilty of two
corruption.
conspiracy counts, honest service, mail fraud, Hobbs Act bribery, obstruction of justice, and lying to the FBI.
And in that article, it did indicate that some of what, I guess, the contributor, the guy who was bribing her, more or less, I guess he was indicating that he was making contributions to her campaign committee and she was pocketing the money.
Okay,
So that's not a part, I mean, all they refer for is failure to file an annual. That's technically not a part of what
Okay.
we're dealing with, but
We're
that's
talking
a part of
bribery.
what federal, yeah, I mean.
Yeah,
it's-
effectively it's bribery.
was simple
under the
bribery.
Federal statute.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And she was it looks like she was
It certainly sheds
she was
light
a
on what,
Summit County councilman at one time.
Right.
Okay, okay.
And actually, the article that I pulled up said that she was serving 5 years in Alderson, West Virginia. It didn't say 10, it said 5, so I don't.
Okay.
So I guess given the
Because-
discussion, it seems to me like we should have one service and two, maybe some more investigation on her and direct discussions with the Summit County Board of Elections.
I would
concur.
agree with that, and certainly time isn't, I mean, I want to move quickly on it, but time's not of the essence since she is incarcerated. So I don't see how we're jeopardized in any way by, or prejudiced in any way by continuing it until the next meeting and getting
Well,
the additional
I was gonna say,
information and
I'd
trying to get
continue-
service.
I'll just interject and say, I would just continue it because
All
I
right.
don't know that, we would be able to assure that we get service in the next period of time, between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, but I want to continue it to a date certain. I don't want to just say we're going to continue it, okay?
well, I would, then if we're going to do that, I would suggest we move it to a July hearing only because the June
That's-
hearing, is
that's-
backed up.
That's fine, but just continuing it's not acceptable or satisfactory. We need to have a set date. So July's fine by me if it's all right with everybody else. What's the
I
date
would
in July?
I
I
got a
just share that
question
I'm
for
not
Phil.
available for that July 24th, I think it is, meeting.
No, I think we're July 15th,
Okay,
June 24th,
June
June 24th,
24th.
July 15th.
okay,
Let me
well,
ask you a
I've got jury duty for,
Oh.
and July 14th, it's the 12th through the 23rd.
Okay, Common Pleas Court in Franklin County?
Oh,
Sheriff
I'm
again?
sorry, not jury duty, grand jury
Oh,
duty,
okay,
grand jury.
okay.
Phil, I obviously I'm not involved with your service issues. How long does that process and procedure take? And is July 15th reasonable from your perspective?
Personally,
To
I'd
do
say
your
no.
investigation and get service?
I'd say no, move it to August because the likelihood is we send that out, our process is send it out certified mail. Certified mail comes back undeliverable. Then we would send it again by regular mail, and then we can assume service after 28 days, for our rules. But not knowing how fast the Postal Service would return. I mean, if I knew Postal Service was going to try a couple times, send it back to us, and we send out regular mail service, you know, I'd say, yeah, July, but I'd be more inclined to say August because I just don't know how fast we might get that back.
Okay, that's
Okay.
why I asked.
Yeah.
And you're going to contact the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Prisons, to firm up where she's located and what her address is. That
Yep,
would be,
I
that
can-
would be the most expeditious way to do that, I think.
And I
Yeah.
think you can do that online, Phil. And if you need help with that, we have LexisNexis at the office, and I can have my paralegal. look into
Yeah, no,
that.
I
You
don't mind
don't have
doing
that
that. It
availability.
could be, It
You'll
could
find a
be-
lag, though. You'll find a lag between what's online. And that's why you do the online, but I also suggest you call the BOP and see where she is. There've been a number of prisoners that have been moved because of the COVID-19. So all I'm saying is that the most current information would be a telephone call to find out where they are and then match that against the website if you want to. But for
and that's
example,
where it could be, you know, we send out certified mail, you know, it may go, they may have a better way of making sure they're getting service by certified mail because
Yeah.
they know where she is. So it's possible it could come back quickly.
what's the date in August for our meeting, Phil?
August
We've got
12th.
two of them.
August 12th,
Uh,
Dennis?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do we want to go ahead? Any
Did you
more
say the-
discussion by members of the commission with respect to continuing this matter to August the 12th? And if there's no issue with that, then I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we continue to August 12th hearing.
All right,
Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Do we have a second?
Second, Bromer.
Thank you, Mr. Bromer. We have a second. Further discussion on the motion to continue this matter to August the 12th? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This
you.
matter, case number 2021 R-021 is continued to August the 12th for service. All right. Next matter on the agenda this morning would be hearings, cases 2020D-023 and 2020G-027, Obrensky versus Cleveland's Future Fund LLC et al. Mr. Richter?
Yes, we have received from a signed consent, easy for me to say, a signed consent decree from both parties on this matter, which has circulated it to everybody. You've all seen it in conversation that I had as I first sent it to the chair. He suggested that, you know, and I suggested that we go ahead and accept it. I think it's a reasonable, you know, when you get the parties to come together and come together with an agreement like this, it seems to be an appropriate way to resolve the matter. You know, they're fine with it. And so I'm, first off, I would recommend accepting it. But in our acceptance, initially discussing it with Chair Kreitz, he suggested, and I've passed it along back to council, and both council have agreed that we, as a part of our acceptance, we would want a report back at our next meeting on June 24th, indicating that all the terms and conditions of the consent decree have been complied with. Just this morning when I got to my, and looking into my emails, Mr. Langdon, who is counsel for the, who's counsel for the respondent in the matter, specifically stated he's fine with the timing. If the commissioners approve the consent decree, we'll have everything wrapped up in 2 weeks. That is what he is saying. Mr. McTighe earlier in the week had gotten back to me and said he understood that and thought it was a good idea. I know Mr. McTighe was on earlier. He's off. I see Mr. Colombo is on. Corey Colombo.
I think he's back on, Mr. Richter. I think Mr. McTighe's back on.
He's just using
I'm
Corey's email.
using Corey's computer.
Oh,
Mine
you're
decided to
Corey.
update itself.
Okay.
Right.
Don's changing his identity. So
He looks a
That's-
lot younger.
Yeah,
that's where we are on that. I would certainly recommend that we move forward on this, approve it, direct that the parties get back to us at June 24th meeting, and direct the chair to sign on behalf of the commission. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have, or certainly we could hear from Mr. McTighe. Mr. Langdon indicated he's on vacation, would not be able to attend today's.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. McTighe, and glad to have you with us again this morning. Is there
morning.
anything that you'd like to say on behalf of your client? And
no, I'm happy that we were able to resolve this, and hopefully the implementation of it will be smooth and there won't be anything to come back to the commission on. So,
all right, very good. Questions by members of the commission of Mr. McTighe or Mr. Richter?
I have a question for Mr. Richter. We're looking for confirmation before the June meeting. Would confirmation to you, Phil, by way of email that everything's been taken care of be sufficient so that these parties don't have to waste the time and appear at the meeting next time?
If that's what the commission would do, I'm certainly fine with that. That's understandable. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? All right, then. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation from Mr. Richter. I also move that as part of this, to notify the commission either on or before June 24th that all of the requirements have been taken place. And on behalf of the commission, they can either notify Mr. Richter before June 24th by way of email or appear back before the commission.
Second, Tavares.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Tavares. Further discussion by members of the board? If not, then we all in favor of the motion, go ahead and signify by saying aye, raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by a vote of 6-0. Thank you very much, Mr. McTighe. Good luck to you, sir.
thank you.
See you, Don.
Mr. Richter? I have nothing else on my agenda other than the other business. And our next meeting is June 24th.
The next meeting is June 24th. That's all I have listed on the written agenda.
Okay.
I mean, I can't apprise you of a few things.
Go ahead, sir.
One, we're in the midst of the audit. And so Chris and I are dealing with the auditor's office. We've got documents. We've already had a couple of meetings with them. We've got documents we got to send over to them so that they do their review. And so that process has started. It will continue through the rest of this year and at least briefly into next year. Their initial estimate is that the cost we are obligated to pay is around somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000. And so it won't be a breeze, but in looking at our finances, it looks like we should be okay through the rest of the year. I think Chris and I have done pretty good about making sure that we limit the commission's expenses. And so I think we're in pretty good shape that way. The other thing that I've talked with Mr. Kreitz and Mr. Beatty about is I was approached by a legal counsel to the speaker who indicated he had read my written testimony that I provided to the House when I was doing budget testimony. And one of the things that he indicated was interest in what it would take to at least potentially automate the commission's system and take us somewhat out. He didn't phrase it this way, but it's pretty much the truth. Take it out of the dark ages of an all paper-based system and move it to an electronic system. And so Chris and I have been talking to various people. We talk with the DAS's Office of Information and Technology. Of more interest to us, and Chris and I had a presentation on Tuesday from a company called Tibera that essentially installed and operates the system in Franklin County, in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court. They also have done some other courtroom work in the state of Ohio from our discussion with them. I think they mentioned Montgomery and Mahoning and Summit, among others. And they provided they walked us through what their system does. And it's, an all-encompassing system from entry all the way through, document management, case management system. And it looks promising, I guess, as much as anything. I've reached out to DAS's procurement area to ask them to get me more information on, what we may need to do if we want to try and pursue this. And I have no idea how much this is going to cost. From talking to the guy at Franklin County when I first reached out to the Franklin County Clerk's office, I think he said, now I wish I could remember. I didn't bring my notes. It was over $2 million to install their system. And I want to think it's $70,000 a year that they do, maintenance upgrades, et cetera, for Franklin County. I know Catherine, Scott, Mike, even probably, you've all probably worked in the Franklin County system. So I've certainly submitted documents to the system. It is much more complex than ours, although ours has a certain complexity to it. So I'm not anticipating it's going to cost that much, but I have no idea how much it's really going to cost. They are going to provide me, Chris, with some numbers as to what it might cost. I haven't gotten them yet. But, and certainly I passed back information to the Speaker's Council, just indicating, hey, this looks promising. Here's what we've done. And she said, yeah, that does seem promising. Keep me apprised. So I'll keep her apprised.
Phil, just a question. If we're going to pursue based on, and my gut tells me the speaker was asking the question so that we would give him a ballpark figure, because you would need more money in your budget, certainly to, solicit. And for me, we are going to solicit at least 3 bids for a system of that magnitude financially, correct?
I can't disagree with you, but that's why I reached out to the purchasing area to say, more or less, what do I need to do? First, what do I need to do to get Tibera, in the state system? And that is the only company I've talked to. You're correct. But beyond that, I don't know. I'm still kind of at the very beginning of this process. It's something I've been working on for about a month and a half. I don't, there are probably other systems out there, but the guy at the technology guy that I talked to at Franklin County spoke extremely highly of this company, and not only the system that they have installed, but their support for it, and what they have done. So yeah, it's been 25 years since I've done any kind of, real purchasing on behalf of the commission, from when we first started operating. And so, it's a learning process.
There's a maximum level of which you can purchase without doing bids. And so I can't remember what the number is now, but
Right.
You would definitely have to do 3 bids for any major purchase. And I know that $1 million or more, or even probably 70,000 for an annual, you would have to do that.
Right. Well, and it's certainly possible we may need to do an RFP process, which I wouldn't be overly excited about, just because of the complexity of going through that whole process. But that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. And that's why I reached out to purchasing to say, okay, well, as little state agency here, what do I do? How do I approach this? Getting numbers from them is certainly one thing, but trying to figure out the process and go through the process is something else. So that's it. The last thing is, at various times we have talked about extending the commission's jurisdiction to include, let's say, improper public activities, school districts, cities, etc., using their funds in violation of either Revised Code 33-1507 or 9.03. This is something which I'm working with the Auditor of State's office. They are wanting to see this as much as we are, or as much as I am, and you guys are. I've had numerous meetings. I have one today at 3:30 with Representative Jim Hoops, whom I have known for a while. We were looking for someone to potentially get something entered into the General Assembly. He is willing to do so. With the Auditor's Office, we've been working through reaching out to potentially impacted parties to try and, either get them on board or understand what their issues may be with it. And so that is moving forward. Representative Hoops is very interested in doing it. We've kind of run into one particular area that has concerns. The Prosecutors Association, we're trying to work through those, as we work this thing forward. Like I said, I've got, a meeting today. I've also indicated to the Auditor's Office folks that I can be available anytime, essentially, to talk about this further. And, they're going to try and set something up next week to kind of keep the process moving forward. So that's just a couple of things that got going on in general as it relates to, interesting things, shall we say, going on in and around the commission, just to kind of keep you guys apprised of what's going on. I'll be glad to try and answer any other questions that you may have concerning some of this stuff, or anything else you want to discuss.
Phil, I do have, it's not really a question because you and I have discussed this. I've wondered in my time on the commission, as certain cases have come up and we've considered them, we've made comments like, oh, I wish the statute allowed us to do this, or the statute would not allow us to do this, or whatever. Have we ever, as an agency, contemplated putting together, I'm going to call it a wish list, but I mean, identified areas that we really think need to be pushed for in terms of changes to statutes and things like that? I'm not saying that we do it now, but I'm just saying maybe we ought to put our heads together and come up with a list of things that we think are really good ideas, and then at the appropriate time approach, Representative Seitz or somebody in the Speaker's office, or Representative Hoops, or whomever. Okay, I'm not restricting that with those ideas. I mean, I'm one of those people. I like to have a plan in place, and I think it might be helpful. I don't know how the other commission members feel, but I think it might be helpful to identify certain areas that we think we need to focus on over the next couple of years in terms of changes and things of that nature, revisions.
I'll just interject quickly before anybody else comments. Have we ever done that? Yes. Has it been a while since we've done that? Yes. I am confident I could probably go back. I don't remember, Catherine, do you recall if that's something we may have discussed when you were previously on? It feels like it goes back that far, potentially. It is something that we have talked about at various times. I know there have been a couple of times where I have sent letters over to the General Assembly to say, hey, you might be interested in doing this. But it has also been a substantial number of years since I have been involved in anything like that. So it's just I thought off the top of my head.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm just thinking that right now might be a good time. There seem to be some potential vehicles to be able to attach some changes to, if we can make the good argument. I mean, House Bill 13, which is going to modify the campaign finance law, was introduced by Representative Grandel. We also have the Ohio Election Security and Modernization Act that's being sponsored by Representative Seitz, and then obviously the budget bill. I mean, this they've reached out to you, so this might be a time for us to be able to discuss with them some other things that might be good changes for the Elections Commission and election statutes. That's all I'm suggesting at this time.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I would agree with that. And I'm a firm believer in being proactive for your entity as opposed to having people do things to you. And you see there's an interest right now, and I would put my wish list together and prioritize of those areas that you think are most important to the commission.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other thoughts? Any other business?
Not
If
from my
not-
perspective.
All right. If there's none from the commission, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Brommer.
Mr. Bromer. Do we have a second?
Cunningham, second.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. We have a motion that's been duly seconded to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks a lot. Safe travels back from San Francisco, Charlita.
Send your
Thank you
thoughts
all.
to
Have a
Otto
great
and
day.
Jane.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
See ya.
And Phil,
Yeah.
I did find my agenda. I apologize, but it was so short, I didn't recognize it, so.
Not a problem. I wish I didn't have any other kind of issues sending emails out, but I do every now and then.
No, it was all on me, so thank you.
It's nice to see you up, Mr. Norman. It's nice to see you up out of the basement again. I mean, you're living large there.
Yeah, well, my wife is in New York, so I'm allowed to come out of the basement.
When are you heading down to the lake?
As soon as I can get this shirt and tie off.
Oh, okay. Tell Scooter I said hey.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, we'll see you.
All right, see ya.
Oh, let's see here. Do it this way, then, I guess. Remove from meeting. He's out. He's out. I'll let the video go for a few more minutes. I'll let the video go. Excuse me, a few more minutes. Oh, that's right. I did call him back. Yeah, a little, but I mean, it's one of those